They say never judge a book by its cover, but we all do. A great cover helps to sell books. Are you a writer who is curious about how book covers are designed? Are you curious about the interaction between the press and the artist who designs the cover? Want some tips that will help you advocate with your press about the cover? Well, you're in the right place as we're going to cover all those topics. Hi, everyone. I'm Michele Tracy Berger. I'm an academic and speculative fiction writer. Everything I write tends to have an element of psychological horror to it. My collection of Doll Seed debuted in October of last year with Aunt Lu Books, and it spans horror, contemporary fantasy, paranormal, and a little sci-fi. I'm also a coach, and if you're new here, this channel is named after my coaching practice called The Creative Tickle, where we take a fun and accessible approach to everything related to creativity, and we specialize in helping writers. Today, I'm so excited that I'm going to be talking with Authan Chen, who designed the amazing book cover for Doll Seed. And let me tell you a little bit about him. Authan Chen is an illustrator based in New York with a great passion for creating art and solving problems with graphics. He holds an MFA in illustration as visual essay from the School of Visual Arts and is well versed in illustration, graphic design, 2D animation, and traditional painting. He's collaborated with multiple international brands, creating visuals for commercial campaigns, promotional posters, animations, and book covers. His paintings have also appeared in galleries all around the world, including New York City, Los Angeles, and Shanghai. He is inspired by pop surrealism and symbolism, and his works try to blend the line between digital art and traditional painting, as well as reality and the fantasy world. Authan, I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here, like sharing my thoughts and like the process about the book cover.
Well, so first, tell us a little bit about, the your author's journey. Like, did you always draw and paint when you were young, and how did that lead you into the work that you do today?
Right. So I grew up in Taiwan, and I think when I'm like a young kid, I always loved drawing and like painting, and I always like urged like my parents to like send me to like drawing classes and stuff. So I think growing up, I always knew that I wanted like a career in this field. So I finished like my degree in like graphic design. I worked a while in Taiwan as a graphic designer. And after that, I came to the States to like finish a master's degree in illustration, which I it's like my whole passion and like my dream to like come here to do illustration. Yeah.
Uh, oh my goodness, so exciting. That's
Thank
great.
you.
And you had those ideas when you were younger and really stoked them into an artistic pathway, which is amazing. Love that. So I will just share a little bit about what I experienced as a writer on the Aunt Loot side, which I think is both somewhat common and also uncommon. So usually it depends on the press. Sometimes writers are not really consulted on the cover design process. Basically, they're given a cover and you kind of either, like it or you maybe can make tweaks. That was not the case with Aunt Luke Books, which I'm just really thrilled about. They first started working with me on a mood board. So they asked me to share sort of themes about the book, ideas. They asked me also to submit covers that I liked. And so they put together a huge mood board and we looked at that together and some of the things that they had on there that I didn't kind of care for, other things I really loved. So they put that together, I think, before reaching out to the artist. And one of the things that was on the mood board, looking at kind of horror, suspense, women, in that sort of genre. We were going more toward that end before kind of leaning back a little bit more into fantasy. There was a lot of red. And I will just, what's interesting about the cover you designed, no red, and it's amazing. So I want to come back to talk about that. But so they worked on a mood board. We worked on a mood board together, and then they reached out to you as the artist, and then uh, why don't you share a little bit about your process, and then I'll come back and say a little bit more about the other side of it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I do like enjoy the communication process. I think on Loot Books they did like a really good job. And then so I think when they reached out to me for like illustrating for your new book, I did my research first and then I read the Dulcie story, which is already the short story, which is already published. And I think your writing is like always really vivid. So it helped me a lot like through when I'm like trying to visualize the scenes. So I did get the editor's proposal about the direction initially, which is like going to like a more mysterious and like a crime scene direction. And then I think after that I did pitch like several sketches for you and the editor. And then I think also during that time they wanted to, because I think my art style, there's like a touch of like the colorful and like the dreamlike style, which is something that they want to like add to this cover. So I think that's how the the final direction like went this way. Yeah. And I would also like want to share a bit about my like two interesting approaches that I realized when I'm
Please,
like
yeah.
creating art. Yeah, thank you. So I think like I also do have the cover here with me. And then I think two things that I realized that after like years of creating art, I didn't like discover this. Like I didn't do it on intention, but I think two things that I started to do is one of them is the color that I use. Like so if you go through like my art, you might realize that I use a lot of these. Oh, sorry about the noise.
No worries. I can't hear it on my end. So
Okay. So I'll start again. So like one of them is the color that I use. So I use a lot of like these pastel colors, especially like purples and the blue tones you see here. Because I realized that these colors, we don't often see them in nature. So it's like if I put a lot of like blue or purple tones in my work, it will make my art like more surrealistic. And that's like something that I realized. Like for example, if I draw a human in blue or like a human that the skin color is like blue or purple, it immediately like look unreal. Or like if I draw blue trees or like purple trees, they will look very like surrealistic. So that's like something that I realized. And the other thing that might be interesting is I tend to make my art look very like I like to amplify the presence of air or like zero
mm,
gravity. So you
mm.
can see like everything is like floating or like drifting in the scene. And that is like something I like to do. It's almost as if the scene in like Alice in Wonderland, where when she like fell down the rabbit hole, like everything's like floating around her, and it immediately also like creates this like dreamlike situation. So I think these are like the two things, like the two approaches that I use in my art a lot recently.
It's so powerful. So on my end, when they had committed to work with you, I they sent me your website and I go on there and I'm like, amazing. And we'll make sure that people know where to find you, but
Thank
amazing. I was
you.
like, okay, this person is already doing, kind of fantastical, a little grotesque or odd, which I love. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I'm so lucky that this artist is going to be working with Aunt Lute. And then, like you said, so I think you sent maybe four um, different possibilities for the cover.
Right.
And I was also impressed prior to that, like you said, you had read Doll Seed. And for those who are watching, Doll Seed is in some ways, a contemporary fantasy. It's a little bit of an alternate history. It reimagines what happened to the black and white dolls that were used in the 1954 Brown versus Board U.S. Supreme Court decision that struck down legal segregation. So, but there's hierarchy between toys and dolls, and it takes place in 1954. So there's a lot going on in that story. But
Right.
I was really impressed that you had read the story, and it seemed like you also, as you said, were kind of already working in that kind of fantastical little bit world. And so when we got the designs, it was just so exciting to see how you conceptualize it. And I think this is what is important for authors we get in our head sometimes the way things are going to look, and we really do have to trust both the artist and usually in a press, sometimes the marketing people get involved about the kind of sensuality that the cover is really trying to evoke something. It's not a literal, literal representation, right? And I don't know
Right.
if was this your first book cover or had you done book covers before?
So yes, I've done like multiple book covers, but those are like when I was back in Taiwan. So those are in like Mandarin. And I think for the US market, this would be like Doll Seed would be the first like published English book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you totally knocked it out of the park. And so once we on my side, and this is again to Aunt Lute's credit because they did not have to involve me in the way, but they're very collaborative
Mhm.
press just generally. So we chose the main image, and then then you got to work on that. And I'll say what's amazing about this image is that it many of the themes in the story are about fragmentation, otherness, identity, mystery, family, and you capture all of that with the fragmentation of this doll's body. And there are some villains in the story or antagonists that you kind
Right.
of hint at with the Missy Anns. They're a type of doll that's uh, traumatizing Shavella, who's the main character. But there's just something that, and then the hint of kind of violence here. But the way you structure the color scheme, it's not what to me what stands out. And I've gone on a lot of book talks. I've been very fortunate to talk quite a bit about the book and meet people. Everyone mentions the cover, right? Because it also doesn't strike people as a kind of traditional horror or suspense cover. And
Right.
so your color scheme really plays that up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like one thing that I really feel about like when I read through your story, like when I read through the book, is that I don't think the um I think like the controversy between like different races. I think it's like a hidden metaphor like throughout all of your stories, and I don't want it to be like so obvious. Like, so that's like kind of like the direction that I went for the cover. Like, I don't want it to be like just like out there right in your face, and I want to like also like hint about it as well. So yes, I really appreciate that you also noticed this part about the book cover. And yeah, I but also yeah, thank you so much for liking this cover.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Love the cover. And it also, like you said, it brings people in because they just want to know what's happening with this image, and it brings people in. And my work is not solely horror. Most of the stories have maybe some touch of that, but it's also, like some fantasy, mystery. And so I think it brings the reader, it makes them curious, which is what you want. And people are looking at book covers very quickly on their phone usually, or in doing other things, and so covers are so important to kind of stand out. And I really love the cover. And I have to say, so but way before this book was published, I had a dream. I had a dream that, and this has never happened before, but I saw an image of a doll, of a black doll, as part of the cover. And this is years before I got the contract with Aunt Lude. And sometimes our subconscious, when we're working on things, but
Mhm.
it was in black and white. And I think it really was very much, if you look up the black and white doll test, there's some famous images of the dolls that were used. And so, but it was like in black and white, almost like in that overexposed kind of photo realistic. So, and so I had that in my I had that just in my mind and my imagination. And then by the time I get to work with Aunt Lute and we're working on the cover. So this just to me, it's very different than the dream that I had, but it just so captures the feeling
Mm.
that you just did that so well. So I'm just so grateful. And I guess one of the things that I was hoping you could share too with us for aspiring writers, let's say they are in the early process, they've gotten a contract with the press, they're working with the press, and they come up to that point where they're going to start being asked about questions around the cover design. What do you think writers need to know kind of behind the scenes that they should be aware of?
Right, right. So I think one thing that I would always like as a cover designer, like I would always appreciate there would be like a already like for me, I would always, if possible, would want to like read the whole book. But I think sometimes the publications they only provide like a brief summary or like a
Mm,
short draft. But I think the more like a written essay, like the more complete the book is, I think it would be like more helpful for the artist to like visualize everything because I think all of the words in the stories are powerful. So I think
mm,
the artist can always like find ways to like visualize or like conceptualize throughout the essay. And then I think the other thing is I think this time with like Antlu books, we work together with the same editor. But sometimes I think
mm,
for bigger publications, there will be like an art director department and separated with like the editors department. And then
mm,
sometimes they also need to go through like the marketing department as well. So I think most of the
mm,
times, the author would work only with the editor. And then I think the artist will work together with the art director. So it's like kind of separated. And then they would share like discussions throughout the company. So
mm,
I think one thing that authors can always I guess like you can always keep like a list. For example,
mm,
if you go out to um like a bookstore and you see like covers you like, I think for on
mm,
the author side, you can always like, like flip to the back of the book and then check who's the artist or like who's the designer. And I think when you're working with a publication, you can always like send them the list because if someone's already like did a cover for a book, then of course they're able to like do more. So
mm,
this is also like what I do when I'm like going to bookstores. Like if I shop around and I see covers that fit my style or like covers that people already use, and that's like something I see myself also be able to like work on that cover, I would also like reach out to that publication or those art directors and I would like try to like seek for like job opportunities. So I think this is like a two-way thing. Like
mm.
I think authors can like just like browse through like bookstores and then they can like find artists or like illustrators they like this way. Yeah.
That's so wise. And to be engaged in the process, I think earlier on than maybe writers expect to be. So just kind of cultivating that list and then even maybe working with your editor to design a mood board or asking them to do one. I think that might be helpful too. And so and
Right.
also I love that, the sense of trying to get the story to the art as much of the what, it could be a novel or the collection to get that to the artist early in the process. I think that's great advice. I also want to say to my fellow writers just to stay open because if you're lucky, there's a little bit of a back and forth process. So as the cover was being designed, even though we never got to speak through the editor because the editor would work with you and they'd come back and work with me, to for writers to be flexible because we also
Totally.
that's not our element. Visual design, let the professionals handle it. And I do think sometimes writers can have very rigid ideas about what should be on the cover, where you have to understand that yeah, just to be flexible and be open and to be surprised because it's a creative process, or at least I
Yes.
experience it that way.
Yeah. I think that is like also a very important part, and I do enjoy like the flexibility throughout this book cover. Yeah, I think yeah this collaboration was like a really good experience for me. So yeah, I do suggest that I think even for the artists as well, like we should always like be open, like stay open-minded, and then like to seek out like different possibilities. So I think that that's like a really great point. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I again, it's all to make this process which can feel, I think for maybe both the artist and but particularly for the writers, very mysterious, trying to shed a little bit of light on that. And so I just want to, as we're going to start to wrap up, how do you stay inspired as an artist? Because when I went to your website the first time and then just revisiting it, you've done so many different kinds of work, so many different kinds of collaborations, um, and lots of different kind of styles, even though you have your own style. But I'm just curious, like,
Mhm.
how do you fill your well? How do you stay inspired?
Right. I think I'm like always like greatly inspired by like plants and animals and like mythology or like any interesting like fictional stories, sci-fi stories. So I do visit like the botanical gardens a lot or like the museums here in New York. And then I also like consume like a lot of movies or like TV series, like sci-fi series, because those are like very also like another world like another world level of like imagination. So I also do love that. And I think sometimes I also try to bring like my Asian culture and like my Taiwanese background to my work. And sometimes I do like a little fusion with like the with Western culture. So I think this way it creates like a new new like point of view, I guess. Yeah. And then I feel like I'm very fortunate to stick around New York City. So there's also like a lot of art markets and like events happening all the time. So I try to like attend those and then like just keep my mind like vigorated. Yeah.
Well, it definitely shows in your work because you are prolific
Thank you.
and have done a range of, different kinds of work. So that's really inspiring. And I think the fact that you have like, film, TV, in real life, walking around to galleries and museums, that just allows us to get a lot of things. And we never know. I mean, as creative people, we have to take in a lot of things and let it kind of digest. And I love how it comes up in new and unexpected ways as well.
Wow.
So where can people find you? Will you tell us kind of, yeah, where can people find you? And if you can share anything that you're working on, what's next, if there's something you can share with us about what
Right,
you're doing.
sure. So yeah, so I think for me I'm like creating some designs for some book cover, but also like a movie poster. But those are like in the very proposal stage. So I'm not sure like where those will be going. But like if I'm not working on freelancing stuff, other times I work on my own like art shop. So I do run like an art shop,
Mm.
and then I would also attend like do vendor events in like New York City or the New Jersey area. So I sell like art prints, stickers,
Mm.
and like small merch. That's like also like designed by like my own illustration and stuff. So yeah, people can like find me on my Instagram because I share like my next event like I share my event info on my Instagram a lot. So my Instagram handle will be Authan Chen. Yeah, like straight up just Authan Chen. Yeah. And people can find
Excellent.
me there. Yeah.
Excellent. I'll make sure to link to have that in the description and also your fabulous website too, so people can find you in lots of places. And I am wishing you just continued incredible success. Athan, it's just been amazing to work with you, and I do hope that we get a chance to work on another type of collaboration, another idea, because it's just, I really admire your work, and getting to know you in this way has been just really fun.
Right. Same as well. Like I love your stories, like all of the book. I really do enjoy reading it. And yeah, I'm like I can't wait to like work with you again in the future soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much for being here.
yeah, thank you so much for having me today. Yeah.